Hello, everybody. Hopefully you're still here and you saw that excellent presentation from James. Next up, we do have the senior magic designer, Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. Must be nice to design magic, by the way. How are you doing, Gavin?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here. It is snowing in Seattle today, so that's pretty wild. We got, yeah. I guess we're all gonna have to work from home. So
we'll have to make some adjustments there. For those of you who maybe don't know Gavin, you will know some of the things almost certainly that he's worked on. Most recently, Mystery Boosters and Commander Legends are two projects I know, Gavin, that you were very, very instrumental in. Gavin actually, there was this great promo of Gavin with Mystery Boosters showing up at a Magic Fest, you know, with sunglasses and a handcuffed suitcase, you know, briefcase to him. So that was amazing. So senior designing at Magic, senior designer for Magic at Wizards of the Coast, Gavin Verhey. What kind of background can you give us as to what that means? Senior designing Magic is it sounds like a very broad title. Magic's a big thing.
Yeah, totally. It is. And it is a lot, as I'm sure all of you stores out there are familiar with too. But, you know, for me, what I focus on, I'm going to get into this a little bit in the presentation too, but the big thing I focus on are designing the cards, designing the experiences, and designing the sets. So looking forward at kind of what we have going on in 2021 and beyond, I'm thinking a lot about individual cards that we're making, thinking a lot about the sets that we're coming out with and kind of what themes that those are going to have. And then I also, do a lot of work thinking about what our players are going to want. So taking feedback in from the community and trying to manifest that. And I'm mostly focused on, and I'll get into this a little bit in a few minutes, so it's not too many spoilers, but I'm mostly focused on Commander, which is a huge area. I know for us and probably many of you as well. I'm sure you're seeing your players enjoying the Commander format. So there's a lot to be done there, and I'm excited to be one of the people spearheading it.
So how much, my own personal edification, we'll get to your presentation in a few minutes. Just for my own personal edification, I'm just curious, like how much of the design space goes into, because like one of the things being a boomer as I am, that you can see in the development of Magic right now is how much thought goes into world creation, right? There's so like every piece, every detail, the flavors of these sets, Kaldheim, you know, even Ikoria, Theros, like the whole, you know, pantheon of gods, everything. You see that kind of within the set. How much of that design space, when you talk about taking a level back, are we looking at, okay, well, now we've got Kaldheim, but then we've got Strixhaven. And is there a whole kind of way that all of that melts together from plane to plane and set to set?
Totally. You know, it's a really long-ranging vision. I think if you've ever read any articles about how like Marvel movies are made, it's a pretty close equivocation to what we do, right? We look years in advance. Like we often have what's called like the 7-year plan. Sometimes it's not exactly 7 years. It's a little shorter than that, I think, in some cases. But we look at way far in advance, trying to figure out what all of our sets are going to be, what their rough themes are going to be, and how they're going to connect from a story perspective. Because Magic, one of its great strengths, Mashi, is how many different games it is, right? Because to some people, it is just a game, right? You sit down, you play competitive, like, you know, I'm a standard player, what have you. To some players, it's a storytelling vehicle. Like what's happening with the characters in the story? Why is Vorinclex on Kaldheim? You know, all these questions players want the answers to. Some people have seen the different worlds, right? They just want to scratch that top level itch of, oh, cool, it's Norse world. Oh, cool, it's, you know, it's monster world, like whatever that case is. And no matter who you are, there are different things that you like at different levels, and making sure we can hit all of those things with our upcoming sets and offerings is so important. And so we spend a lot of time and a lot of research and a lot of effort into trying to make them very varied. And if you look at the past year we just had, you know, 2020, if you look at all the main sets in that year, they're all very different feeling sets, right? Like Zendikar Rising is very different from Ikoria, which is very different from Theros Beyond Death. And that's not even getting into the ancillary products that we created. So they all feel very different, and their mechanics are different, and their worlds are different. And, you know, if you shuffled up those cards, you would find that you'd be able to pick them out pretty easily from each other. So we put a lot of energy into that for sure.
So are we going to get an answer to what Vorinclex is doing in Kaldheim in this presentation?
Not going to be in this presentation, unfortunately. That's one that I would be cut off. I think my mic would be cut if I started talking about that. But you know, one of those things where, like I said, we have very long-ranging plans. And you know, I always think about the last arc we did, which culminated with War of the Spark, and how we saw Nicol Bolas building up for sets and sets and sets, right? And his machinations back in Kaldheim and Amonkhet, and what exactly is going on there. And I love building up to that kind of big finish. And yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff in store over the next several years of Magic for everybody.
I love that. And I'll let you go. I don't want this to be Mashi and Gab. I would spend the whole rest of the conference, forget the rest of the hour, just talking about Magic. But I do love that move. I do like everything that happened with Nicol Bolas was so amazing because again, I'm old school and I remember the Weatherlight crew fighting against Phyrexia, from Tempest block, with Weatherlight, then it all culminated in Apocalypse, and I was in for it. I was playing tons of competitive Magic, but I was reading all the flavor text. I was looking at what was happening, and that really was something that appealed to me. And I'm so happy to see more and more of that coming back. That's why that Boring Collects thing, it just sticks in my brain, like, oh, they're doing it. So, okay.
I just want to say, I always feel like it's a huge win, Mashi. I mentioned a moment ago how there's like all these different kind of player types who love different things. I always feel like the huge win when we can get someone to care about something that's not in their sphere, right? And this fact that you're like, yeah, I'm a super competitive player. I like play to smash people, but I cared about the story. Like that is music to my ears. That is the kind of thing I love seeing. And with Magic, I really hope we can keep doing that going forward because we've got some cool stuff on the horizon.
Awesome. Well, let me hand it off to you, Gavin. Take us away and talk to us about Magic in 2021. Thank you.
Very good. Let me boot up my screen share here. And I will show you about some of the fun stuff we got coming up. Hope everyone out there is doing well today. Here in Seattle, it is snowing, as I mentioned before, which is why I wore my snow shirt. That would be very, very nice and appropriate. All right, here's this, and here's this. And if I could get confirmation that you all can see my screen in the chat.
I think you're good.
Yeah, it looks good.
I'm good to go. Okay, perfect. Very good. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming out today. I know you've come from all around to come see this presentation. So thank you so much. I'm going to talk today a little bit about Magic in 2021 and what to expect. Mashi gave me a great intro. I didn't know I was going to have such an amazing intro. So thank you, Mashi. But if you don't know me, hey, I'm Gavin Verhey. We'll get into that in a moment. And I'm a senior game designer on Commander. So let's recap what we just saw in 2020. So in 2020, it was, as we all know, in every possible way, it was a wild ride. It was like no year I think any of us have ever experienced in our lives, and will hopefully be like no year we ever experience again. The big thing for me was how well everyone adapted to COVID. And for all the game stores out there, I want to say thank you so much for all the hard work you put in. I can't hear you clapping right now, but I would love for you to all give yourselves a round of applause because really, like, it is amazing how well everyone adapted to this. So a big thank you for all of you for helping create an amazing year for Magic and, make sure that all the players out there in the world could get the cards they needed. And it just means a lot. So thank you so much. A huge one for us and for all of you as well are the new kinds of boosters. We saw this beginning in Eldraine, but really continuing throughout 2021. We had the evolution of collector boosters, which was a pretty big deal. Just more cool stuff going into those and them appearing with all kinds of different sets, including ancillary sets like Commander Legends. And then also the brand new set boosters that showed up with Zendikar Rising. This was something kind of brand new. And for players who had bought draft boosters for ages, set boosters were a new world for them to uncover and will continue to be important for Magic going forward. And then next one is a really big one for me. And to me, I think this is super apparent, which is that it was a year of Commander. There was Commander Legends. There were additional Commander decks all over the place. There was Commander Collection Green, and even Mystery Booster at the beginning of the year really had a lot of Commander reprints and Commander staples that players needed. And when you think about the past 10 years of Magic and how we kind of starting in 2011 released one Commander product every single year, this was a lot more Commander. And we're kind of seeing, is there enough interest, or is all the data we're seeing about players loving Commander really there? And the answer to me is certainly yes. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm sure many of you out there saw this as well. So before we go any further, I want to say that at the end of this presentation, I'll be taking questions. The presentation will be about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we're going to be taking a bunch of questions. So throughout the presentation, if you have questions, drop them in chat. And if there are other burning things you want to ask, just drop them in chat, and I'll be sure to take a look at them at the very end. So once again, thank you for all your questions. I see some rolling in already. Okay, so that was 2020. What's next? Where are we going from here? Well, while I get you just about ready to talk about that, first I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why this is relevant. So hi, I'm Gavin Verhey. This is me. Some people get confused by this picture. Just to clarify, I'm this one, not the sloth. I'm a senior game designer and I'm focused on Commander. And as I mentioned to Mashi a few minutes ago, this means I make the card design. So the thing that I'm focused on is not drawing the pictures, which is what some people think when I say I make Magic cards. No, I focus specifically on coming up with new abilities and mechanics and that kind of thing. Give me your feedback, post things in chat. You will not hurt my feelings. I love, love, love hearing these, even if they're negative, because that's how we make the game better. So don't be afraid to tell me what you think. And once again, if you have questions all over the place, feel free to put them in chat. The one thing I do want to say, though, is I might not be able to answer everything because I am a card designer and I'm focused on cards and sets and the upcoming places Magic is going to. I'm not a WPN rep, for example. So if there are very specific things that have to do with your store, I'm not as well equipped to answer those questions. But give me your best shot and I'll give you my best shot. The other thing that I'm quite known for is I am a community liaison. I spend way too much time on social media. Twitter, Facebook. I even have a TikTok now to get hip with the kids. So spend way too much time on social media doing stuff, but I listen to a lot of what our players think across all ages and all platforms. I make 3 YouTube videos a week. That's something new I started doing in quarantine and it has grown to a really large size. And so I'm always creating content and trying to get information back from our fans about what they're enjoying, what they're seeing out there in Magic. And then I also love to go around the world for fun. I used to be gone basically every weekend, at least before COVID hit. And I would visit stores when I would see friends, when I would want to meet up with fans. We would always go hang out in stores, from the biggest fans to the smallest fans, from people I know to people I've never met, from stores as close as California to stores all the way to the Philippines. I love, love, love going to stores. So I love talking with store owners. I love hearing about what they've been doing and what they've been seeing, because to me, stores are the lifeblood of Magic. That in the bottom right here, that's me at the 10,000th, or excuse me, the 1 millionth Magic event, which is pretty fun. So I've been at some pretty landmark stuff like that. Okay, so why Commander? So I'm a designer dedicated to Commander. We haven't really seen that before, right? We haven't seen designers focused on specific formats. Why Commander? And why is it such a big deal right now for Magic and for all of you out there as game stores? Well, if you're not familiar with Commander, I want to recap. So Commander is a multiplayer social experience. This is very different than what you're used to with one-on-one competitive Magic. You know, if you go to a Friday Night Magic or you host a Friday Night Magic that's a standard format or draft, you're going to see people sitting across from each other trying to smash each other, which is great. I come from a competitive background. I love competitive play. But Commander is an entirely different beast, right? It's 4 people or so sitting around a table playing a communal social game. And it's not about winning. It's about having fun. And you can lose a game of Commander and still have a great time. And that's what matters. And people will build decks out of all kinds of different weird strategies just because they want to express themselves and have a great time. So it's very different from what we're used to. It allows you to showcase your coolest cards. So all of your foils, all of your awesome collector booster versions of cards, your favorite promos from history, they're almost all legal in Commander. So bring them, have a good time. And players get to play with their awesome paper cards they've collected over many, many years. It's kind of become this de facto universal way to play Magic, which to me is huge. If we all sat around 11 years ago or so, and I was like, hey, let's play Magic, and we pulled decks out of our bag, I might have a standard deck, and you might have an extended deck, and someone might have like a theme deck, and someone might have a pile of cards. And this kind of Magic game, well, Magic's all these different games, and our decks are going to be poorly matched against each other. Now I find that everyone pretty much has a Commander deck, right? You ask people if they want to play, and they can pull out of their bag a Commander deck, no matter what other format they specialize in. Even limited players will often have a Commander deck they can play with. And this has made it a very powerful tool for people to unite and get together and play a game with each other, no matter what format they enjoy. And as stores, this is really powerful because it allows you to make sure that your players have something that they are always interested in and always excited by. You can play with almost anything. If I'm coming in from 20 years ago and I've got, cards from Tempest in my shoebox, I can use those. If I'm new and I just have whatever, a few packs of Ikoria or Eldraine or what have you, I can build a deck out of those. And it's friendly to everything because, once again, it's not about winning, it's about having fun. And then finally, and this is one that I think is really interesting given the year that we just saw, it's a format which really benefits from paper play. I mean, you can play on Magic Online, certainly, and a lot of players do, but the ability, once again, to show off your cool cards, to play with anything you have, to express yourself, to talk with your friends, this really comes through in paper play. Now, that doesn't always mean in-person play, which I'll get to a little bit later, but it does mean paper play. So how did Commander do in the year of COVID, right? It seems like a format that should be hampered by COVID. It's about playing in person with each other. Like, that should be a big problem, right? Well, no. As it turns out, Commander did very well, and to the surprise of many, because I know we were wondering how it was going to do, and many of you were probably wondering how it's going to do as well. But it saw a lot of success, and I think there's a few things we can attribute to here. And while we'll never know for sure, I can't see every Commander game around the world. One thing I can say is it's a great way to bring people into Magic, especially if you're in a social bubble or with family, right? You're at home and you want to play some Magic and you just have your kids and your significant other around you. Well, hey, how about teach them how to play Commander? And it's not about winning. We'll sit down, have a family game night, and have a great time. Or you have a small social bubble. Maybe some people are gamers but don't play Magic as much. Hey, it's a really great way to play Magic with them. Players also found new ways to play, like Spell Table. I'm not going to get really deep into Spell Table today. That's a topic for a different time. And I know that the WPN has some really great ideas for that, which they'll be talking about more in the future. But it is, if you aren't familiar with Spell Table, it's a website that is set up to basically you point your webcam down at your table or your phone, and then you can play Commander against each other with players around the world. And it tracks your life total, everything else. It's a super amazing tool. I know I play a ton of games over Spell Table. And it even allows you to play with people who aren't normally in your play group. And for many local communities, it's how they're still playing together. And unlike other formats, once again, Commander's for fun and social. So there's no worry about someone cheating by pulling a card from their lap or what have you. It's all for fun. You're all having a good time, and allows you to still show off your cool cards and chat with your friends. So a really great tool, and props to our players and our fans for helping make that possible. The products, just bluntly, were all pretty successful across the board. I know we saw that at Wizards. I would hope most of you stores saw that as well. And while I know that not every single store might have seen success with Commander, and there's many kinds of stores, I'm not going to say anyone did or didn't necessarily. Across the board, Commander products did quite well. And then finally, all of our data is just showing it is arguably the most popular way to play Magic. Let that sink in for a second. Commander might be the most popular way to play Magic. This format, which we released our first product for in 2011, in the past 10 years has grown to be so huge. And once again, we can't look at every game in the world. I can't say definitively that it is, but man, Commander is super popular, and it is something that we should all be thinking about. Not at the expense of tournament players. Like, there's obviously standard, draft, like these are all really important too. We shouldn't eat their lunch money for Commander, but Commander is really huge and something we should all be supporting. And it might cause you as store owners to think about how you run events and how you run things in your store a little bit differently than times past. Commander is huge, so I'll be thinking about a few things. What are ways you could engage your Commander players right now? I know from some stores, I've heard about them doing online play opportunities, such as Spell Table or just streaming over Discord, that kind of thing. Commander players love building decks, and they love brewing up decks together. What are some ways you could encourage your local players to share deck lists, right? If you have a Facebook group or a Discord or something like that, could you have even deck building challenges like, hey, who can build the best rat-themed Commander deck? And everyone goes to try and build it. And then, you hold some kind of contest or what have you. I don't know exactly what the right solution is here, but I would be thinking about how can you engage these players even when they're not in your store, because Commander is very social. It's not like it gets boiled down to the top metagame decks, right? Any deck is really viable. So there's a lot you can do there, even that is even different than what you might be doing normally with your players outside of stores during this time. What do your Commander players want right now during lockdown? Everyone's at home. What do they need? Are there backlist products that they're looking for? Are there accessories they need for online play, right? If they're playing over Spell Table, are there things that that could be particularly useful for that kind of experience? I'd be thinking about that and seeing if there's a way you can help support your stores or your players by giving them what they need through your stores. And then finally, once in-store play returns, what is your Commander plan? From visiting stores around the world, I've seen a lot of stores have really cool, robust Commander game nights with point structures and all kinds of different things. What are the things that you could be doing now or thinking about now to help make sure that when in-store play does eventually return, which I know it will and I'm so excited for, that you can be set up for success there? And one thing I'd really call out here is to not make it super competitive. As I've mentioned before, Commander is a really social format. It's about playing and having fun. And we have found that Commander games do not do as well when huge prizes are attached to winning. So how could you encourage sportsmanship or deck building or other such opportunities? Thinking about this now will give you a leg up and let you hit the ground running in several months when it's finally time to meet up and we can all play together in stores again. So Commander is one big thing. Another huge one is booster fun. And we saw this kicking off in Eldraine in 2019, but it really, really kept going with full steam into 2020. And booster fun is all these unique kinds of cards you can find, whether it's these amazing comic book style drawn cards in Ikoria, whether it is the extended art cards that show up in every collector booster, like we've seen throughout the entire collector booster line, whether it is the foil etched cards, which we saw in Commander Legends and were a huge hit, players loved these, or just the showcase cards with unique styles and frames for every single set. The Kaldheim ones are some of my favorites yet, and there's even more cool stuff on the horizon. And even occasionally something onesie twosie. I know Mashi and I were joking about Vorinclex earlier, but this Phyrexian version of Vorinclex is already a card that has captured players' minds. And this is a unique thing we did for just one card that players really, really love. So, there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon for booster fun. And these all show up in our different booster types. And the booster types were something that really got evolved into this year and throughout 2019 and 2020. And I just want to recap these in case, because I think finding the right boosters to give to the right players is really, really important. So of course, first of all, we have the draft booster. These are great for drafting if players are drafting at home, but also for people who just want to open cards in their traditional way. We've been training players to open draft boosters for 25 years. Some players are going to always love the feeling of opening up a draft booster. But I think it's really important to mention that we've designed set boosters as the best pack opening experience. So training some of the players who love buying draft boosters and who buy a draft booster box with every set to maybe go check out set boosters instead could be very valuable. And you can think about the ways that you want to do that inside of your own store ecosystem. But set boosters are really made to be a great pack opening experience for players. And if your players aren't drafting, they should be checking out set boosters. And maybe they still love the draft booster experience, and that's great. But set boosters are an excellent way to get in with that art card in the front, all kinds of different cool card styles to excite players. There's also the theme boosters. I know many of you have found success with theme boosters. Theme boosters are the best way to just get a lot of cards from the new set. Every theme booster has 35 cards from that set in there. And for the player coming in, especially if they're new and they're just like, I want raw cardboard, I just want a lot of new cards to play with, theme boosters are perfect for that. And, mom comes in and is like, hey, my kid started playing Magic, I just want to give him a bunch of cards. Theme boosters can be a really great way to get that player a bunch of cards they can build decks with and start brewing with, and have a great experience. And then finally, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the collector booster. This, of course, is for the top end player, the player who wants the coolest foils, the neatest versions of the cards, all the showcase stuff. This is the greatest place for them to go to. And, we're still experimenting with the format for collector boosters and what shows up in them, but it's always going to be the best way to get that kind of stuff for players. And for so if you have players in your store who want that top end experience, who are really interested in the kind of what the collector booster has to offer, see if you can talk to them in advance if they want to pre-order them or set them aside or whatever the case is, and make sure those players can get access to those boosters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to overview the products we're making in 2021. This is not every single product we're making. Some haven't even been announced yet, for example. But this is some of the stuff I think is going to be really important to talk about and important for this year. I want to say there is amazing booster fun. I just covered it. I covered why it's important in particular, but I can't show it to you yet just because it's not released yet. But trust me when I say in 2021, we are doing more booster fun and some really amazing booster fun. It blew my mind when I saw some of the stuff we were doing. So I think players will really, really love it. And while there's no Commander products on the list that I'm about to talk about, trust me, there's plenty of Commander. There will certainly be Commander. I just talked about how it's so huge. And that's why I wanted to give you that preamble a little bit of why Commander and Booster Fun is important, because it's not going to be in the rest of the products we're going to talk about because we haven't announced it yet, but there is plenty of Commander and plenty of Booster Fun. Okay, so with that, it's time for my awesome PowerPoint animation. Here we go. Boom, there it is. All right, our first product, Time Spiral Remastered. This is coming up on March 19th, so pretty close to now. I'm sure all of you are, already getting your allocations, that kind of thing for this. If you're not familiar with the idea here, it's that we're revisiting a beloved Magic block. We're taking the Time Spiral block, which is pretty old now, right? It's about 15 years old, and we're just distilling all three sets down into one set. And some of your players might be wondering what exactly this is, and that's what it is. And one of my goals of this this presentation is to give you the language you need to talk with your players about these products. And so, yeah, some players might think it's just Time Spiral based on the name Time Spiral Remastered. No, it's from all three sets, Time Spiral, Planar Chaos, and Future Sight, distilled down into one brand new experience. If you're a new player coming in, this is your first chance to check these out. Maybe you've been playing Magic for a few years, but you didn't get to play it the first time. And if you're a returning player who played them the first time, hey, it's a little bit different, because not only is it a brand new draft experience, all three sets combined into one, but there are some bonuses. And a thing that I am so excited about, a thing that I champion for, and that we're doing here, is the return of the original Magic card frame. You'll see here 2 cards that were shown off already: Path to Exile and Chalice of the Void. We have not seen an old card frame Magic card in a very long time. And we have taken cards and put them in here that have only ever been in the current Magic card frame, or the post-old Magic card frame, into the original Magic card frame. We expect this to be a huge hit. I know players are already flipping out about this. And yes, you can get them in foil. Many of you have been shipped your Lotus Bloom promotional cards already, so you might have had a chance to see how gorgeous those are. And yeah, people are going to love these, and I expect it will be very popular. This is a great set for modern players and commander players. There's a lot of that there. It's not going to be standard legal, and it's not really for new players. I mean, some new players might really enjoy it, but it is ultimately for the more enfranchised players out there, because Time Spiral is a very complicated set full of all kinds of unusual mechanics. Next up, coming in March 26th, are the Challenger decks for 2021. Now, you probably have sold Challenger decks in years past. These are 4 ready-to-play standard decks that are built from top competitive strategies. Now, you might be wondering, oh, and by the way, if you want to know what the decks are, what's in them, I actually put out a video. It came out yesterday on my channel. You can go check it out. I cover all the decks. I unbox them. I showed them off. They look a little bit different this time around because they actually use some cool new eco-friendly packaging where almost everything is entirely recyclable, which I know is really cool from my perspective because it creates less waste. And also for your game stores, the footprint's a little smaller too, which should hopefully take up less space on a shelf. But you can go check that out for the deck lists and what have you. A lot of you are probably wondering why Challenger decks this year. You know, we're in this COVID experience still. Well, one thing I want to stress to you and your players is these are still a great product even without in-person events. They're awesome to play against each other. You know, if you have people who are in a social bubble, they can buy these and play them against one another and still have a really great experience. So it's a great thing you can be talking about as players, see this product come out and say, yeah, you know, if you're at home, your family's at home, buy some of these decks, play them, and you'll still have a fun time. They're balanced against one another. And of course, there's lots of exciting reprints, lots of great standard cards show up in these decks. So players will want to own them for that reason too. And all 4 of these decks available, once again, March 26th. You've probably already placed your orders for them. Let's move on a little further into the year. So the next big set, the next big standard set we have coming is Strixhaven, School of Mages. So this is one of our major standard releases. And whenever we talk about major standard releases, I like to think of these as sets that have a little bit for everybody. And whether you're a standard player, of course, a commander player, a modern player, even legacy players, and of course, draft players, there's something in this set for you. It's always going to be a lot for standard and draft players because, you know, when you draft the set, you're going to be drafting that set alone. When you're playing standard, you're going to be using a lot of cards from this set, but everyone should be interested in this set in some way. These are big tentpole releases. I can't say too much about the theme and world and cards of Strixhaven yet because it's been pretty shrouded in secrecy, and all the art that I'm showing from the sets here on out, by the way, is old artwork. So you don't need to take snapshots and start posting on Twitter or what have you. This is a card from Core Set 2021. But it is themed around a wizard school. It's got that very wizarding school vibe. You can think of some of the famous IPs that this might have had tropes drawn from. And I think there's a lot of chances here for fun flavor, not just in the card set, but also with what you're doing in your stores, right? Think about how you could get players engaged in that kind of flavor. And is there something even remotely you could run that's a lot of fun? Coming up after Strixhaven, though, is something really exciting, which is Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, our first ever D&D crossover set. Players have been asking for this for years. In fact, I have had many store owners asking about this for years. Hey, our players love D&D. They love Magic. You make both of them. Why haven't you ever combined the two? Well, we're finally doing it, and here it is. Once again, it's a major standard release, so this has a little something for everybody. But a really big note is that this replaces the core set. So there is not going to be a core set this year in 2021. We're doing this set instead. It's very flavorful, and we expect it to still be great for bringing players in because, you know, all the tropes that players know from D&D go pretty wide, right? If you're familiar with fantasy at all, you're going to see stuff in this set that you are familiar with. So it's a great time to bring players in, and especially to bring in fans of D&D. If you have players that love Dungeons and Dragons, who traditionally play it at your store and who buy it at your store, it's a great chance to suggest to them, hey, come and check out Magic. There's all this cool D&D stuff going on around it. And there'll be plenty of stuff as we get closer and start showing off the products that I think might in particular entice those players. But yeah, I think D&D players will have a lot to love with this set, and it's a great kind of cross-pollination of the two, a great chance for that. And I really can't stress enough, this is big, right? This is a huge crossover for Magic. We're going to put a lot of attention on it from the Wizards' perspective, and I think US stores would do well to prepare yourself to put a lot of attention on this when it hits, because yeah, it's going to be big, and I am stoked for players to see what is in this set. Another big set coming out this year that is not a standard set, but explicitly an ancillary one, is the return of Modern Horizons. So I'm sure a lot of you saw how great the first Modern Horizons did, and this is very much in spirit of Modern Horizons 1. It has lots of cards that will be good for the modern format with all the stuff that, you know, players have grown to love from the first Modern Horizons, but taking a lot of those lessons into account to make sure that we're creating the right number of cards for Modern, that we're impacting Modern in the healthiest ways that we can. And also, one thing I think is really important is that there's a bit of Commander focus in here. It's not a Commander set, of course, it's a Modern focus set. But one thing that we found is Commander players loved Modern Horizons 1 because of the high power level, because of the wonky mechanics we did, because of the throwbacks to old things that they loved, the old legends. All of these things create an environment that Commander players really enjoyed. So I would also prepare for not only Modern players to love this set, but also for Commander players to love this set. And for Commander players in your store or in your general group, I would make sure to mention them that this set is coming out. And even though that it's for Modern, it's right there in the name, it also has a lot for Commander. And I would expect that as you're pre-ordering and allocating, Commander players will want this set as well. So just keep that in mind. It's really not intended for new players. Once again, some will buy it, some will be interested in it. But I anticipate that new players should generally shy away from this product given its high complexity level. And finally, this is a big one. You've probably heard this word from your players before, no matter what your level of Magic familiarity is. It is the return of the 5 enemy fetch lands. So Scalding Tarn, Aaron Mesa, all of those. We announced this earlier, or actually at the end of last year, I believe. But they're going to be in this set, and players will have a chance to get their hands on them. So you know that whenever we talk about fetch lands, the set's going to do really well. They were in the original Zendikar. They were in the Allied ones were in Khans of Tarkir. Players love these, and you can expect them to be to really aid the excitement around Modern Horizons when that set hits. So stay tuned there. Then at the end of the year, we have something a little bit different, okay? So we're going back to Innisrad with 2 different sets. These are not the actual names. They're not called Innisrad Werewolves, Innisrad Vampires. The names will be announced a little bit later. But they are 2 different Innisrad sets. And these are 2 big standard legal sets coming in at the end of the year. These are standard sets, and once again, there's a little something for everyone, right? We want to make sure that everyone is excited about this. And Innisrad is one of our most popular worlds. It is up there with Zendikar, up there with Ravnica, in the mix for maybe our 3 most popular worlds in all of Magic. And when Innisrad comes, we have always found that there is a spike of people getting really excited about the set. This is 2 sets released at different times. What we've said so far is there's going to be one in fall and one in early winter. There aren't exact dates yet, but this is going to be 2 big standard legal sets coming at the end of this year, which is a little different from normal. And as a result, make sure that you're preparing for that and thinking in your store cadence how you want to set up for that as the year goes along. And as always, Innistrad is a world inspired by Gothic horror. So you have, I mentioned once again, the sets are codenamed werewolves and vampires. So there's going to be lots of that stuff running around. And there might be really fun stuff you can key into with your players. Whether it's if we're able to get together in person by then, if there's fun tie-ins you could do for Halloween or who knows what. But you're all very clever, and I'm sure you'll come up with some pretty cool things. So Innistrad is a big time for Magic. And like I mentioned earlier, that's not all. There's still plenty of other things I can talk about once they're public, Commander, and so on. But it's going to be a big year for Magic, and these are just some of the tentpole things coming out that you should be expecting. So to recap, if I had to take away 5 big things from this, it's that Commander is big. What can you do for your Commander players right now and in the future? Focusing on this is going to be huge, not just for 2021, but beyond, because we really care a lot about this format, and we're going to keep supporting it. And we know it's big in stores too, so be thinking about this a lot. Number 2, different booster types help give players the right experience. How can you get those right boosters to those right players? You know, how can you get the player who has always bought draft boosters to try out set boosters? Is there a high-end player you can try and get the collector boosters to? That kind of thing is really, really crucial. D&D and Magic is a big crossover. This is going to have a lot of attention. And can you be laying the seeds early with your D&D fans to get them excited for that? Can you be thinking about promotions you might want to run as your store as it gets closer to this happening? Modern Horizons 2 is probably going to be even bigger than the first. I mean, this is a really sweet set. We took all the learnings from Modern Horizons 1 to put towards this. And it's a great set for Modern, but also Commander. So be sure your Commander players know about this one. And then finally, at the end of the year, we have 2 Innisrad sets. So this is a different set release cadence than normal. Just prepare yourselves for that. Think about how you're running your store and how you might normally maybe do some different stuff toward the end of the year, because there's this lull with Magic. It's not going to be there this year because of Innisrad. So prepare yourselves for that. But I think we have to get wrapped up here. Mashi, I'm going to throw it back over to you. I will say that if you ever have any questions, my channel is always open on Twitter. I didn't put my social media information here, but Twitter is always great for me. You can @ me at Gavin Verhey. It's just my name. It's that way across almost all social media platforms. So go and look for me. I'll try to answer your questions there. And I hope you enjoy the rest of LGS Con. Big thanks to Channel Fireball for putting this together. I think it's amazing. And I hope there are many, many more of these. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Mashi.
Thanks, Gavin. Thank you so much for your time. There's so much information here. Definitely, I would encourage anyone who is working in Magic or just a fan of Magic, give Gavin the follow. And then Morning Magic is great. It's a lot of fun. It's informational. That there's a lot of information about products that you maybe will hear for the first time there that Gavin does on his YouTube show. So I strongly urge anyone in the retail side or just anyone who's a fan of Magic to check it out. I think it's a lot of fun. And I know you put a ton of thought into it, and it's a great, great show. So thank you so much to Gavin. We do have Liz Piotr up next from Ultra Pro. Why don't we take a quick break and get some water, use the restroom, do whatever you need to do. And we will be right back with Liz Piotr, the Global Director of Marketing from Ultra Pro. Thank you so much, Gavin. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thanks all of you. Bye.